Okay, yeah, we're working good. Um, I'm trying to debate on how to handle questions. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is try to kind of segment this, and we'll do it in like whatever, like 30-minute segments, and then go to like 10 minutes of Q&A, and then we'll go another because we've got several segments here to do. And if that sounds like a format that'll work, and let me ask you this: we're supposed to go until 5:15. Does anybody need a break? Can we go just straight through? Is that okay? Yeah, if you have to go to the bathroom, just go out to go. But Cathay just said just go. Well, I don't want to see water trickling down the steps here. Okay. All right, so let's get started. The people element of our farm businesses is always, it eclipses everything. Ultimately, business is about relationships. You can have the best product in the world. You can be in the best place in the world. You can have the best customers in the world. But man, if the team, if the family, well, as we say, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, right? And so if the team is not jiving together, all the earthworms in the world, all the happy cows, all the dancing tomatoes, all the everything does not make it work if the house is not a haven. Everybody with me? So we're going to get down and dirty here, okay? Because ultimately, this is what makes or breaks our businesses. It is, and I've been to. I mean, it's ours. I mean, nobody is immune to this. And does anybody here have a perfectly functioning paradise family that never has a tension or a dysfunctional conversation? Oh, you? If anybody does, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell to you. All right. So, where we have to start is with where are we going? And I call this creating a mission statement. Now, those of you who have been through holistic management, I make no bones that, in my opinion, perhaps the single most valuable thing that Alan Savory has brought to the world is the necessity of making a mission statement. Now, the mission statement is an organic thing. It's an evolving thing. Just because the one you have this year might not be the one you have next year. For example, at our farm, our first mission statement was make a living from the farm. I mean, it's really short, okay? Make a living from the farm. That was it. After that was accomplished, about 8 years down the road, then people started getting interested in this, and it morphed into what it is today, which is to develop emotionally, ecologically, and economically enhancing agricultural prototypes and facilitate their duplication throughout the world. Okay? So just because you know what you want to do today doesn't lock you in for 20 years from now. And don't worry about 20 years from now. So if we don't have the mission statement for our farm business, the mission statement is the destination. The thing I want to get to us to understand is nobody is going to get in the car and go with you anywhere if you can't tell them where you're going. Come get in the car, but I have no idea where we're going. Just jump in by faith and we're going to start the engine and go. Well, who's going to get in the car with you? Everybody's going to bicker about whether you should. There's a lady of faith. All right. The first time you get out to the end of the lane, if you turn right, somebody's going to say, well, shouldn't we turn left? I thought we were going right. I mean, correct? Um, so I never cease to be amazed at how many struggling businesses, when I ask, all right, you have a business, and it can be tiny, it can be very, very small. Okay, I mean, it can be $1,000 a year business. It's still a business. All right, what's your mission statement? And almost nobody has one. Okay, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands and embarrass anybody, but I am going to tell you, if you don't, this is your soul, this is your destination, this is what every decision you're going to make gets bounced off. This becomes the litmus test of every decision you make. And so my son Daniel, he's real good at this, and he says the single biggest destroyer of relationships is unexpressed expectations. Well, I thought it was obvious. Well, it's not obvious. If we don't tell our spouse our expectations, they can't read our mind, right? If we don't tell our kids our expectations of how they're supposed to act or behave or whatever, we shouldn't be surprised that they're not doing what we think they ought to do. All right, we're not mind readers. And so how do we make a mission statement? Let's just do a very quick exercise. In fact, I can just play with this. Very quickly, with no judgment at all, let me ask you, why are you in this session? All I want is just key words. Why? What is your expectation, your hope, your goal? Why are you in this session? Just scream out a couple. Learning, including your kids. Inspiration. I missed this one over here. What was it? Survival. Yes, that was the one I missed. Successful. Getting organized. I'm sorry. Happy work environments. Okay. All right. That's enough. That's enough. Well, all right. So what we do here is we essentially brainstorm a set of key words. And this is how we drill down to what I call to our soul. Okay? And when we're doing this, nobody judges. Boy, I mean, I've got a whole chapter in one of my books, I don't know which one it is, on how to do a brainstorming session. All right? The problem with brainstorming is we're so quick to jump in with judgment. That's a stupid idea. No, the whole idea of a brainstorming session is, by definition, it means nobody judges here. No, we're just putting ideas on the table. All right. So we've got some key words: learning, including kids; inspiration; survival; successful; getting organized; happy work environment. Okay. So let's just say that if we could boil this down to one sentence, and if you remember your 12th grade composition teacher, or when you're writing an essay in school, remember way back then, and if you had a good teacher like I did, the teacher says, if you can't write your thesis in one sentence, you're not ready to write. Anybody hear that? Good, you had good ones too. In fact, the truth is, if I'm not ready to write the thesis of a book in one sentence, I'm not ready to write. Why? Because until you get down to the essence of something, you're not ready to start hanging stuff around the edges. I mean, this is the heart of it. This is the core of it, okay? You can't build muscle and tissue and skeleton, and hair and skin around something until you get to the heart of it. And so here we've got learning, including kids; inspiration; survival; successful; getting organized; happy work environments. Okay, so for a mission statement here, I'll just say, we'll combine some of these and we'll say that our goal here in this session is to inspire a child-inclusive learning environment for farm success in an organized in a secure business format or something. Okay, all right. But I mean, they always say the things you're not supposed to do in front of a crowd is write on a blackboard, because you always misspell stuff, and do math, because you always misfigure. So this is always a little bit of pushing exercise to do this. But did everybody see what I did there? All right. So what you do is you go back to your significant stakeholders, everybody that's critical, and you have this brainstorming session. You work out these key words and you wrestle with them until you can capture in one readable sentence what your soul is, what is your dream legacy, other questions to ask to move you forward on this. I call this is the thesis statement for your life's essay. It's your dream legacy. It's if somebody was to put on your gravestone, if you died tomorrow, what would you want inscribed on there that he or she did this, this successful? Okay. Everybody with me? Because if you don't have a clear destination in mind, it's really difficult to excite people to join you on the journey. And that's what we're talking about. All right. So we've got a mission statement. All right. Now, we've got to, first of all, get looking for my crib sheet here. We first of all have to get our significant other, our partner. Generally, we need a partner. Now, that partner could be a marriage. It could be just a friendship. It could be simply a handshake partnership. Let's do this together. I will tell you this, that it's really difficult to pull this off by yourself. One of our former apprentices was struggling, and we had a long conversation, and he said, well, what is, I have a real problem here. And it struck me for the first time, this was several years ago, it struck me for the first time, I have never been alone. Mom and dad came to the farm when I was 4 years old. I grew up there. They worked off farm jobs to pay for it. So by the time I was in late high school, the farm was the farm was paid for with off farm income. And I had my chickens, and I had my business throughout my from 10 years old on. And I wanted to be on the farm, and so when I came back, they were still there. Then Teresa and I got married, and we just went seamlessly in to where I never was by myself. One of the reasons that a partnership is so important is because you need somebody to be up when you're down. And most of the time in a partnership arrangement, you are not both down at the same time. That's very helpful, okay? Because it can get kind of messy. So the first thing is to honor the diversity of our partners. And of course, normally this is going to be a spousal deal. But you have to understand that there are differences among people. And so we move to expectations. Lots of times, opposites attract. So we have one partner is a cleanie and one is a messy. Okay? And so the cleanie is trying to pick up everything and make it look good. And the messy couldn't care a lick about that broken limb off the back bush and the, whatever. Okay? And so you have to you have to work at these things to come to some sort of a compromise. Another big one is the introvert versus the extrovert. Okay? This is probably the biggest one for Teresa and I, where we're more opposite than any other characteristic. Guess who the extrovert is? I'm the extrovert. She's the introvert. You get all these marriage counseling books. Women are from Mars and men are from Venus, or whatever, the other way around, whatever it is. Women are crowbars, men are clamshells. All these marriage things, and always about women have whatever, how many thousand words a day, and men have like a half of that number of words. And what's funny about us is 20% of marriages are opposite that standard, and we're one. I'm the one with the words. She's the clamshell. All right, so she's the introvert. I'm the extrovert. So the other day we're down eating breakfast, and I see kind of some shadows outside the window there, and I look over. Now she's got her. We're sitting at the dinner table, and she's got her back to the window, and I'm sitting on the end of it, so we're 90 degrees to each other, so I can see the window real easy. And this family comes up, mom and dad, and a daughter about 11 and a son about 8, and they come right up to the window. I mean, they're 8 feet from us, and they're looking in the window. Here's where they live. Here's where they live. And I'm sitting in there, and I went, "Ha! How you doing?" Teresa's saying, "Give me the shotgun. I'm going to go shoot them." All right. So, we have a 24/7, 365 open door policy. Anyone can come from anywhere in the world, anytime, to see anything, anywhere, unannounced. That can be an irritation to an introvert. Okay? So, we've had to create spaces. All right? And this is how the lunatic tours came about. We now do these scheduled lunatic tours. And it doesn't funnel everybody onto it. We get about 15,000 visitors a year. Okay? And it doesn't funnel everybody into a scheduled time, but it funnels a lot. And it's a scheduled place, a time where if you want our attention, come to the lunatic tour. It's a 2-hour hay wagon tour, and we go around the farm, but it's a scheduled tour. It's on the schedule. Teresa can see that, and it helps to funnel people into that time slot. Not everybody, but most, okay? And both of us, we buy shirts from down at the uniform store, where people, die or get fired, but they've got their name monogrammed on their shirt. And so, I mean, it's routine for me to be out, doing something, and somebody walks by and my shirt says, Michael or something, Pedro or Juan or something, and they look at the shirt, and they, "Oh, Michael." I say, "Yeah." They say, "You work here?" "Yeah, I work here." "Well, tell Joel he's got a cool farm." "Yeah, I'll tell him. That's fine." Teresa's got these shirts, with all sorts of strange names on them, so when people come, she can just work in the flower beds, like she's from, Miguel's landscape service, But the point is, these tensions, these are part of expectation. And if you're going to have, for example, a store on your farm and you want customers to come to the farm, you have to create places that honors these character differences among people. Here's another big one. What if one of you is a starter and one of you is a finisher? To the starter, half a dozen half-finished projects are diamonds in the rough. To the finisher, clutter out here. Okay? That's really a big deal. All right? And so there've got to be accommodations there. How about one's a spender and one's a saver? Now, this is where Teresa and I are the closest of any of all these things. We're both frugal. I was going to say cheap, but we're frugal. There's a difference between frugal and cheap, okay? We're generous about some things, but we're frugal, okay? And I always tell people, the secret of my success is marrying a wife that's more frugal than I am. This is, but lots of times the whole business gets hung up on lifestyle, and one has a more spendy, one has a more savvy, one has a complete aversion to debt. One doesn't mind jumping off a cliff, and that then creates tension because, I'm not sure, and women tend to be the nest builders. And men tend to, we're a bunch of barbarian hunters, so we go jumping off the cliff with spear in hand. Oh, I don't know if I can pay for this or not, but I'm off the cliff, going to the mastodon. And we're going to have, mastodon burgers for supper. And women are back at the nest, saying, I'm not so sure I'm ready to risk, this little nest here on this wild farming venture. And so these are things, look, I'm not a psychologist. I don't have the answers for all this stuff. I'm just bringing it up because these are the things that actually make or break our farm businesses more than marketing, more than are the chickens healthy, more than do we have enough water, okay? And so you just have to be aware of these things. Just be aware of these things so you understand as you go into it. You're honoring the diversity, and you're not disrespecting that diversity. So you have to honor those relationships: the spousal, the partner, the parent-child, the in-law triangle. I mean, that's a huge one. And then of course you have your non-family. Okay. We'll take one more set of this, and then we're going to take some Q&As. And I'm going to go through what I call my 10 commandments for working with your kids so they will love working with you. All right? And for those of you with young kids, this right here, trust me, will be worth the entire weekend. There's going to be a couple nuggets in here for you, whether you farm or not. All right? I wrote this book, Family Friendly Farming, and several people have said, I can't believe it. You wrote a family psychology book and made it a farming book. So, and the reason that I can say these, I think, with such great, confidence is because I came from a pretty functional family. And so I had some good mentors. So number one, integrate the children in a meaningful way in your work. Integrate them in a meaningful way. Kids can spot and make work from a mile away. It's not your duty to keep them busy. It's your duty to be creative enough to create places of service that are age appropriate for the kids to be a part of the team. See, I'm one of these old, weird people who believes that if children are brought up right, they really want to be like mom and dad. And if the kids don't want to be like mom and dad, something has happened to reduce the heart of that child to not want to be like mom and dad. So I think we've actually done our kids a big disservice by not expecting anything from them. And I don't want anybody to go, Twitter about Salatin hates child labor laws and going back to Charles Dickensian day. But there's a balance between Charles Dickens and meaningful work for children. chores, loading the wood box, pulling the weeds in the green beans, okay? Fixing dinner, washing dishes, all of the things that make the the function work. So integrate them in a meaningful way. I mean, I remember when our kids were very, very small, we actually had people say, you talk to your kids as if their ideas really matter. So, well, yeah. They do. Some of the best ideas we've had came from little kids, right? Because they're not all callous with cynicism and contempt. And they've got fresh ideas, new outlooks, new ways of looking at things. So don't shy away from integrating them in your, don't feel like, oh man, if I ask my 5-year-old to help butcher chickens, I'm going to mess them up for life. They're dying to butcher chickens with you, okay? They want to. In fact, they want to do it at 2 and 3. They want to be with you at that time. They say that most of our life's character is firmly in place by the time we're 3 years old. And that picture that we saw this morning of the little child that's where memories are created. That's where memories are created. All right, number two, a love to work. Make work a noble thing, a fun thing. Never punish with work. You disobeyed, go out and pull weeds for 20 minutes. If you want to destroy the love of work of a child, use work for punishment. I know numerous Amish families, and they really get this. And they actually are very effective at making work so enjoyable, such a great place that the children want to be, that they use, you can't go with dad and cut corn today, and the kids just bawl and, I want to go cut corn, Here's another one on this, and this is worth the conference, trust me, for those of you with little kids. Never make your tasks, we're still on a love to work. How do you inculcate a love to work? Never make tasks time-oriented. Make them performance-oriented. How many of us remember, go practice the piano for 30 minutes? And you go up and you go through the routine of practicing the piano for 30 minutes. What a difference it makes is go practice, Bambi XYZ chopsticks, and when you can play it without making a mistake, we'll read a story or have an ice cream cone or, have a smoothie or whatever the appropriate thing is. Then you get up there and boy, you work at that and you work at that and you work at that because there's an incentive of function. Okay? How about go pull weeds in the I'm stuck on green beans for some reason, but go pull weeds in the green beans for 30 minutes, for an hour. A 7-year-old. There's no incentive to being efficient, to working fast, to completing anything. There's no incentive. What if you go out and say, put a certain little pink survey ribbon up here and walk down the row a little bit and put a pink survey ribbon down here and say, I want you to pull the weeds between here and there. And it's got to meet approval. This is, and of course, we're assuming here we've showed them how to do it. It's in the first, day we've ever done this. And because before now, we've been working together. Okay? And now the child is old enough to, or we've got to do something else. We can turn them loose on their own. How do we get them to have the same joy they had when we set those survey ribbons out? And we said, and we started with, kids love competition. If you can get to your ribbon before I get to my ribbon, you win. Kids love competition, all right? Turn the work into a competition, a playtime. So anyway, the kid's left by himself, And you say, when you pick to the other ribbon, then, we'll whatever, read a story, go swimming, whatever it is we're going to do, the right incentive. And now the child has a completion-oriented performance incentive. They're not just putting in time. Whenever we just make our tasks time-oriented, we actually teach dawdling. Dawdling. Wasting time. Being slow. Why? Because there's no incentive to get with it. Right? And so always define the work things that you're doing with the kids in the household, with the family. Do it from a performance orientation, not a time orientation. And by the way, I'm not a believer in what do you call them? Where you give money? Allowances. See, I can't even say the word. It's like, nobody should be paid for breathing. Okay? So when I say work, I'm a big believer in incentivized work and even paying for work. But there are certain things that kids need to learn that they do because they're human. Putting your clothes away. Putting your dirty clothes in the hamper. Making your bed. I mean, whatever's age appropriate here, okay? But there are things you do because you're part of the human, part of the family, right? To make the household function. Does anybody get paid for cleaning your toilet? And yet, do we agree it ought to be done? All right. So kids need to learn very early on that there are servanthood things that they need to do that are just part of functional, whatever, human, life, right? And it really concerns me today. We deal with a lot of millennials with all these interns and apprentices. And it's really frustrating when I see so many millennials coming today with essentially, I want a dollar sign on every single thing that I do. And you can't divide every facet of life and your farm life into a dollar. Sometimes you have to muck out the stables. Sometimes you get to ride the tractor. Sometimes you have to grease the tractor. Everything doesn't have, a definable dollar thing. And so this whole servant's heart is critical in smooth function. Number 3, give them freedom. I call this allow them to exercise their discernment muscles. One of the biggest problems we have today is what we call, boomerang kids. We keep sending them out and they keep coming home to mom and dad's basement. And what nobody wants to talk about, they complain about the boomerang kids, but they usually come from helicopter parents. Always hovering around there. Oh, poor baby. Oh, little child. I mean, I had a lady come up to me not long ago. She grew up in Washington State. She's about my age. And she said, when we were kids in Washington State, when all the apple orchards were really, they were really moving on these apples. In the city, the orchards would post a schedule, and the orchards would rent the school buses for the summer, and they'd print a schedule like the ice cream truck. They'd come through the neighborhood. And if you wanted money to go see the movie or you wanted spending money, you just made sure you were down at the curb to meet the orchard bus at 7 o'clock, and they'd drive you out to an orchard, and you had to be a certain height. They'd have this line drawing, and everybody had to pass the certain height. Okay, but she said 12-year-olds would do this. This was our spending money. You go out, you pick apples all day, and you got paid on how many bushels you picked, not by the hour, okay? But that's how you got spending money. And she said, that's how all the apples got picked. Kids would, can you imagine that today? And see, I think that we have abused our children by withdrawing that opportunity to viscerally participate meaningfully in the adult world from our young people. And I think we're beginning to reap some of the the fallout of this kind of withdrawal of adult participation. So how do we get kids to exercise their discernment muscles to understand? Well, we give them freedom. That means we encourage them to do projects. That means when they have an idea, we don't throw cold water on it. Okay? Even if we think it's a little bit above their ability. Yeah, good, go for it. Let them fail. When Daniel started with his rabbits, and Rachel started with her baking business at 6, and Daniel started his rabbits at 8. They were their businesses. Okay. Number 4, create investment opportunities for your kids. Let them buy things. Let them own things that are theirs. Where everything is not mom and dad, where they can actually say, this is mine. And I mean, it might be nothing more than a toolbox, my tools, my things. One of the most powerful self-affirming things possible is to create ownership of something. If you study orphanages very much, or you study foster care, in our country, orphanages in Russia, foster care here, what you quickly learn is the value of that little, sometimes it's nothing more than a plastic bag, but it's my stuff. And my stuff becomes the litmus test of my stewardship, my ownership, it's my extension of my being, okay, my stuff. It's my crayon and how quickly the kids fight over my pencil, my picture, my puzzle, my toy, right? Because all of us desire something that's mine, and it helps to identify. Why would I have this and not that? Well, because I like this and not that, right? And so it's a very defining thing. So encourage them to invest in things. Number 5, encourage entrepreneurship through autonomous business. Okay? And this is critical. Encourage entrepreneurship through autonomous business. Everybody knows that I started my chickens when I was 10 years old. And the neat thing was, Dad didn't have chickens. They were my chickens. So when somebody came to the farm and they wanted to see the chickens, Dad didn't take them out to the chickens. He came, found me, and said, you take them out and show them your chickens. Okay? There's a big difference there. So when Daniel got his rabbits at 8 and Rachel started her baking business at 6, it was their business. You know what that means? That means their little jar of money that they developed from their business, it's their money. And the first time they blow it on that Bible that they saw from somebody at school or Sunday school or whatever, that, I've just got to have this, and they learn that materialism does not make you happy, it's a lot better to learn that lesson at 6, 8, and 9 than not learn it before you're 40. Okay? Money doesn't satisfy. Material doesn't satisfy. Things don't satisfy. And so when I say autonomous business, I mean autonomous business. And you know what? If they don't get up and take care of their business and the chickens die, they die. That sounds harsh, but it's their business. How are they going to learn responsibility and dependability and perseverance and all the important character traits that we want them to learn? One of my proudest moments was Rachel was about 10. She had a couple little buddy gal friends, 2 or 3 of them, and they started doing a little ladybug newsletter. You know, they had about 6 subscribers among their parents and uncles. And Thanksgiving came around. It was like a monthly newsletter that these little 10-year-old girls did. And Thanksgiving came around, and they each did their little paragraph on what I'm thankful for. And our daughter Rachel, you know what she was thankful for? Work. I'm so thankful for work. She said, can you imagine the kind of chaos that would be in the world if we didn't have work? That's pretty cool, right? So, if it's their business, it's their business. Number 6, maintain humor. Okay? Life can be pretty stressful sometimes. And being able to laugh at ourselves, at our own dysfunction, at our own short-sightedness, at things. One of my favorite memories of Dad was, how you're making hay, you're trying to beat the thunderstorm and all this stuff. And sometimes we're not even done yet. And we just turn off the tractor and say, look at that sunset. And you just, okay, 5 minutes. We stop for 5 minutes. But to just enjoy what people pay big money to go visit and see. And it was just our backyard. Okay? But to laugh often and maintain that humor in the stress of the moment. You can even laugh at yourself after you've hollered at the kids. Okay? I'm not hollering, I just want you to understand and hear what I'm saying. I always say the ultimate litmus test on if you're wanting to get married to somebody, go sort cattle with them. No, dear, I'm not yelling. I'm just wanting to make sure that you hear me across the corral. Number 7, pay for labor. Okay? If they're really contributing, pay them for the labor. Again, no allowances, and not for just the typical day-to-day stuff that's necessary to survive, but pay them for labor. Both of our kids, again, and I'm just so proud of our kids. When both of them hit 20 years old, we homeschooled, and we never had an allowance, but between farm pay and their own business, both of them, when they hit 20 years old, had $20,000 in the bank from their own earnings. Now, I hope you're reading between the lines and you understand that that means they learned how to save and they didn't just spend it. Did they spend sometimes on things I thought were stupid? Absolutely. Absolutely. Whose money is it? Their money. That's right. Okay. 8, praise, praise, praise. Stephen Covey, one of the most profound habits, I think, in there is his concept of the emotional equity tank. He likens it to a gas tank. All of us have a gas tank, but instead of being filled with gas, it's filled with emotional equity. And the fact is, I don't know about you, but we're human. And once in a while in our relationships, we're going to make a withdrawal from that equity tank. Right? Because we're going to say a harsh word, we're going to say an unkind word, we're going to jump to a conclusion that we learn is not right, okay? And we're going to make a withdrawal. So the whole principle is you've got to be loading enough emotional equity in that tank that you can make a withdrawal from that tank and it doesn't drain the tank, okay? Because excuse me? Yeah, sustainability. And so, how do you put that emotional equity in there? You praise, praise, praise. Again, we're hardwired to complain. That's why we call them stoplights and not go lights. All right? We remember what stops us, not what makes us go. And so, it's amazing to me how many 50-year-old men, I'll just be very sexist for a moment because this is where 90% of it is, in my opinion. 50-year-old men that are still timid and fearful of building something because when they were 6 years old, Dad fussed at them for bending over nails. You know what? I want 6-year-olds to come to my farm and bend over $10 worth of nails. Because it's the 6-year-old bending over nails that makes them an exciting 16-year-old to work alongside. Okay? And you can build stuff, washing dishes. That's another good example. Child's up, doesn't matter, boy, girl, doesn't matter, up washing dishes. And we see 2 pieces of food that didn't get washed off. And that's what gets mentioned. Instead of look at all these dishes you did. And we take that one and kind of discreetly wash the thing off and we put it back in the rack. All right? Now, there's a time to have expectations at this level, and there's a time to have expectations. That's what I'm getting at. And so if they grow up in this cheerleader environment where they're not scared to attempt something new, not scared to bend over a nail, not scared to cut a board, and this becomes, sometimes I don't get through this part, because my dad was a journeyman pattern maker at Delco Remy, a Chevrolet subcontractor in the 1940s, and we still have his big toolbox of all the tools. I mean, we're talking about building a carburetor mold to pour the lead in, to pour the metal in, making a carburetor out of wood. So he has all these calipers and little, and made his own gouges. He made them out of leaf springs from automobiles, round ones and flat ones and small. I mean, he could make anything. He could make furniture. He could make grandfather clocks. I mean, he made our baby beds in Venezuela, South America, when we were there, and we still have it. He made our. I mean, it looks like it's just amazing. But he could make this stuff. Well, I came along. And I don't know about you, but my tape measures, they don't have any lines between inches. Inches close enough, Inches close enough. And so I'm here, and I get to be 14, 15, 16, and I'm starting to do more stuff, and I'm making gates for the corral. And I can't make a 90-degree angle to save my life. They're about 87-degree angles, kind of parallelogram gates. He never said a word. He said, nice gate. And I know it had to vex his, But I want to ask you later on, how many chicken shelters would I have experimented with building? How many eggmobiles would I have built? How many shade mobiles, gobbledygos, and all the other things that we've done? If all I'd heard was, son, can't you make a decent angle? Are you with me? Now, and I do this, and it's amazing sometimes I see these 50-year-old macho men, big tears roll down their cheeks when I start, because this is real life, isn't it? This is a real deal, okay? And so we've got to invest that praise, be quick on the praise and short on the complaint. 9, enjoy your vocation. Enthusiasm is contagious. What's true is that more than half of all of America's farmers don't want their kids to become farmers. Isn't there a country song about mamas don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys? Yeah. It's low pay, it's dusty, it's drudgery, it's disrespected. I mean, what school guidance counselor would ever tell a grade A student, wow, you're so smart, I think you should go be a farmer. Okay? Nobody says that. You know, the soccer moms gathered around the soccer game with all their little, 5-year-old prodigies. And, mine plays, Beethoven Opus 67, and they've got all these little child prodigies, that are going to, and one of them says, well, my little, Mary wants to be a farmer. And all the other soccer moms say, wow, cool. I wish my kids were going to be like that. And so in mainline agriculture, farm kids, even in their own families, are not encouraged to be farmers. So, we want our kids to enjoy what we do. We got to be enthusiastic about it ourselves. Enthusiasm is infectious. It draws people to us. And so, enjoy your vocation. And number 10, and finally, last one, back off from personal domains. I call this successional transition. This is one of the biggest problems. It gets really emotional when I'm doing one of these things and a 23-year-old sitting back here asks, what do you do if you want to come back, but Dad won't let you experiment with a different approach? That's a big deal. Okay? So what we have to do is the tension here is Mom and Dad have all this equity and they've, put their heart and soul and life into this farm. And here comes Junior, and they're afraid Junior's going to blow it in 5 years, right? And so Junior has to understand it's not, it's not foreign, it's not weird for Mom and Dad to be kind of scared of their new ideas. But by the same token, Mom and Dad have to understand that Junior's affirmation of being able to carry out a new idea is the lifeblood of their incentive. Okay? And so what we have to do is carve out areas that the next generation can do as autonomous fiefdoms that don't threaten the mothership. Somebody wants to come in and start doing controlled grazing. Well, carve off 20 acres and say, okay, son or daughter, those 20 acres are yours. Now, you just keep working in the operation, but I'm going to let you do whatever you want with those 20 acres. Put in a water line, put cross fences, whatever you want to do, you can do it on those 20 acres and create space for those experiments to happen. We want to grow garlic instead of arugula, all right? There's got to be space. We've got to make space for those kids to happen. And in my experience, generally, the kids that are fed up, everything else being equal and functional, the kids that are fed up are the ones that don't feel like they can spread their wings, that they can try things, that they can innovate, that they can discover with their parents' blessing on the home place. And so they gradually get tired and worn out of butting heads, and they go do something else. See, the fact is, you can't Google experience. You can't Google experience. So what you have to do is create places of experimentation and of developing a track record so that as the kids get older, Mom and Dad feel comfortable turning off on more of the reins to them. I mean, the joy of my life right now is that I could drop dead tomorrow and there wouldn't be a bobble at Polyface. Because Daniel runs day-to-day operations. When I go home, he gives me my list of here's what you got to do before you leave again. I'm working for him. That's great. Because then I can go and do my things. All right. So these are spheres where we have to carve out to create self-affirming places. Okay, let's take 5 or 10 minutes of questions on this portion, and then we're going to move right into how to conduct a family meeting, and we're going to move into non-family partnerships. Questions or anything that's on your mind with what we've just covered? Anything at all? Don't be bashful. We're all friends here. We're all happy and helpful. Yes?
How do you turn around the one bad egg that doesn't want to work well with anybody else?
How do you turn around the one bad egg? Yeah, what I've told you here are principles, but we're dealing with humans, and there's no guarantee. Okay? So, I remember one time, Bert Williams. Bert Williams was this cow whisperer who, he would go out on the islands of Alaska, and in 3 days he would bring in, herds of wild cattle to a barge by himself. He was a master herder. He would go to Lapland and bring reindeer in. Okay, for the Laplanders. I mean, this guy was so I asked him one time, I said, Bert, do you ever have one that just does, that you, as skilled as you are in herding and do you ever have one that you just can't? He said, oh yeah. Yeah, and he started telling me stories, about the one that he had to shoot and all this stuff. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you should shoot your kids. That's a little strong, but there's some that just will not go, and so boy, if I had an answer for that, I'd probably be a family counselor, but I don't have the answer for that. You can do the best you possibly can forever, and there will be a road once in a while that just doesn't go, and if it doesn't go, Remember, every personal transaction with another person, whether it's your kid or a friend or whatever, every transaction with a person is an opportunity to put equity in their gas tank. And if we come to these hard things like that, to realize I can't change you, what I can do is I can learn forgiveness and grace through this. And because ultimately all we can change is me. I can't change you. And so if we approach it that, okay, you're uncooperative, this isn't working, and we switch gears from blame to just backing off and releasing some of the pressure. That's the best I know. So that we don't get ulcers over it. And it's easy to say sitting right here, but all of us, I know we have our our difficult people. Everybody has difficult people. Another question on this. Yes.
Selling washcloths with little soap sets. So now she's we're kind of planning out the year in advance this year.
Right.
And so she wants to look at craft fairs, and I'm kind of doing the legwork. She's 12, so how involved?
Yeah, so she can't drive the car to the craft fairs.
Sure.
Did everybody hear this? Daughter's 12 years old. She's knitting washcloths and sells them as a washcloth with soap. Does she make the soap too? No. All right.
Not yet.
So she's collaborating with somebody on the soap. Okay. And selling it as a package and doing real well with it, and wants to spread her wings and go to craft fairs and things like that. That's a great question. So part of this whole exercise is in learning all of the costs and factors in going into the business. Now, that doesn't mean, look, you're a benevolent banker and a benevolent partner, okay? So this is not, a Monsanto partner, okay? This is a benevolent partner, all right? And so, so you're not going to be hard-nosed, but you do have to bring up enough to be practical. And so, you know, in that kind of situation, I would say it'd be great for her to understand that she needs a chauffeur and there's mileage on the car, and just help her to see what that is, all right? And then maybe instead of going to 10, you pick 2 or 3 of the very best ones. And, or you set some sort of a benchmark for one. We'll try 1. So we're going to agree to go to 1. And if we make a certain benchmark, then we'll talk about the next one. Yeah, I mean, Daniel and Rachel both, you know, borrowed money from us initially for things, you know, and then they paid us back. We were very benevolent bankers, okay? But, you know, what was cool was when they got to be 19 and 20, had all this money in the bank, we were able to borrow from them. And we think that's a good thing to teach your kids that, you know, they're earning money so they can, you know, loan it to mom and dad when they get old and feeble and can't, you know, work anymore. So you have to be honest. Don't be hard-nosed. Be a cheerleader, but be authentic. And so that they learn what that authenticity is.
And what about my second part of the same topic question is, so my mom has kind of been buying her yarn, and I really wanted her to get the, you know, the idea of investing and how
Yes.
profit margin. And,
Yes.
and my mom's like, but I want to invest. This is a wonderful thing that she's doing. And I'm like, Grandma, and I want her to want to invest, and I also want my daughter to see that, you know,
Yeah.
it's a good thing. And yeah, we do want to invest.
Yeah, it's like a child with you know, with an egg operation, and mom and dad buy the feed, and the child just gets to keep all the egg money without ever buying any feed. That doesn't do the child a service. That doesn't do the child a service. So I would say here, you're the mom. Okay, so you need to be that gatekeeper.
And she is still buying most of her supplies.
Uh-huh.
And she's really good at figuring out this is
Okay.
how much my cost is, and this is how much profit I think I
Sounds to me like an unfair advantage in the business to have grandma buying your yarn. I think she needs to milk that cow as long as that cow will milk. You know, I think it would be okay if grandma wants to keep doing. I mean, I don't want to get you and your mom into, you know, Dutch, but I appreciate your mom wants to do that. I would, though, put in the cost of it so your daughter understands what that cost is, so she sees it. So she has an authentic balance sheet that captures everything. Because listen, all of us, we love to fudge our numbers. As adults, we start a business. Don't we love to fudge our numbers? We don't want to put them all in because they don't look as good as, you know, if we put them all in. Like one of the things that we do routinely is we don't put our labor in. Well, I'm here. You know, I'm here. And suddenly, you know, we're giving away all our time to this thing. So whatever you do, you want your daughter's experience, and I'm thrilled for it. It's wonderful you want to be authentic. That's all you're trying to do. And if you have to just make up numbers, but to understand, that's great. You know, you got a good thing going here. Enjoy it while grandma has the money. Yeah. But you know, if she actually moves forward, I mean, she's 12, she's not a little child. You know, if she actually moves forward with this, there might be a day when, and you can have a chat with your mom about this and say, I'm glad of this, but you know, if this really takes off and it starts getting to be more, you know, you might, we don't expect you to keep investing this way. All right, good. And you know, gratitude in the kids, this is a big deal. I mean, like now, so all of our grandkids, our 3 grandkids are now 14, 12, and 10. And they've all had their own businesses now for about 3 or 4 years. The oldest one has ducks and sells duck eggs. The second one has sheep and sells sheep, lambs. And the youngest one, our granddaughter, is 10. She sells exotic pullets for urban people who want a backyard flock. So she gets these exotic, Spitzalbins and stuff, that have a, feathery top knot and, feathery feet and all this stuff, and she'll even name them for you. And what's cool is we have a nice collegiate baseball league in Stanton, in our town. And so every summer Teresa and I try to take the kids to, one of the ball games. It's just good, get out, circulate, and people know you're there. And the kids go buy us treats, And it's cool, that our grandkids are buying grandma and grandpa treats instead of grandma and grandpa buying the kids treats. And so, that whole gratitude, and they catch that from you. They will see that from you. If you're gratuitous, they will be gratuitous. One of the best days I ever had was one day we were driving to church and Daniel was about 10, and he's sitting in the back seat and he says, "Man, I got to sell some rabbits. I don't have any money to put in the offering plate today." And that's pretty cool. And he knows the reason for business is to give. That's the reason for business. Powerful. Good to learn that at 10, right? Is that everything? One more.
My 8-year-old, so I manage a CSA, so I'm kind of office person. My 8-year-old likes to help me enter the checks, right?
Yeah, good.
She likes it.
Cool. Little
Participating.
little accountant coming, huh?
So that was really cute. And then I, thought, okay, I could offer to pay her.
Yes.
And the minute I did, it shut down. She didn't want to be paid. She said, "I don't care about money. Money doesn't matter." And then it got a whole lot less fun.
Huh. Okay.
She refused it and kind of fell out.
All right. All right. Well, everybody's different, and everybody perceives things differently. Okay. Most kids are kind of incentivized with money, but maybe you're raising a little missionary or something. I don't know. But enjoy it while it lasts, because it won't last forever. Trust me. When she is about 14, I'll bet it won't happen like that. There will be some adult jaundicing in her life by the time she's 14. Okay, good. Yeah. Well, that's a unique situation, and yeah, you're mom, and you'll let it go and enjoy it the way it goes. All right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Now, we never, do you hear what she said? She said, I want to shepherd the kids, 10% giving or tithing, 10% saving, and 80% then is completely yours. That's fine. And I would say if the kids aren't getting that, that's where you're a coach. Okay? This doesn't mean that you're just, stick your hand in a light socket. See how that works for you. No, we're mentors. We're coaches. Okay. Fortunately, our kids caught that just from us by osmosis. This was how we lived. So they actually developed with, who knows, they probably listened to some program with us on James Dobson that actually talked about it. I don't know. But anyway, that was not an issue. But yes, if they had not had that, we would have shepherded that through. Remember, more is caught than taught. So if they see you doing things, they will tend to copy you because they think it's valuable. All right. Now I want to move right into the importance of family meetings. All right. We're moving to non-family, but hang with me here. Family meetings. In the crunch of the day-to-day business stuff going on, things will happen. Things will come up. Decisions need to be made. And so probably the most valuable thing that we do that keeps us from killing each other is a very formal, scheduled monthly family meeting. I think it's the second Monday of every month. So every second Monday of the month, we have a scheduled family meeting. Now, let me tell you why this is important. There's several things. One is that it gives everybody an opportunity to know that the tension that occurred on whatever day has an end. It has a there's light at the end of the tunnel. You can put off things and not dwell on the tense situation or word or whatever it was. You can put that off if you know it's going to be dealt with in a couple of weeks. Okay? You can defer your stewing if you know there's a time to deal with it coming on. So this is one of the biggest parts of this family meeting. Now sometimes we don't have much to do. Sometimes we get it done in an hour, and sometimes it takes 4 hours. Okay? But by having this scheduled monthly, it gives us a time to say, I was offended at the way you spoke to me, whatever. I didn't appreciate this. You misunderstood this. Forgive me for saying this. Okay, there's a time of because the problem with family business is you can't get away from it. You know, you live with it. You're in it day and evening and all this. And as your kids, grow up and you have grandkids and extended family, and we've got 4 generations on the farm. Mom is a square dancing active 94-year-old, and so we have 4 generations on the farm. And you can't get away from it. We all live there. We see each other every day, and so you're there for birthdays, you're there for Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter and everything else, and so I have a book on my shelf that says you can't fire me, I'm your father. And it's about this whole family where you can't get away from it. And of course, if it's just you and your spouse, same problem. You're living with this thing all the time. So you have to have times to be able to come away from it, step away from it, and then you have to have times where you can come to it. So the monthly family meeting, all right. So that's one. It gives you a place to get this tank filled. How many generations? Oh, in the family meeting? Oh, okay. All right. Good question. So in the family meeting now, it's Teresa and I and Daniel and Sherry. Us and our 2 kids. The grandkids are not there, and Mom is not there anymore. Okay, Mom is. She's sharp, but she's not involved really with Now, annual meeting, yes, Mom is there. But I'm talking about should we fix that pump or buy a new pump? Those kinds of just things. Not that some things don't happen in between meetings. Obviously, we're constantly talking. But the second thing that these family meetings do is everybody gets brainstorms, bright ideas from day to day. And this puts a bit of a governor on rash decisions. Hey, I had this idea. Well, Dad, that sounds like a good thing to put on our agenda for next month's meeting. Okay? Or, hey, I ran into, John Smith down at the whatever, and he has a stack of whatever, junk round bales that he wants to give away. All right? Well, now Daniel doesn't have to ask me if we should go do that. We have to come to consensus on that or agreement on that. You know, when I'm trying to stoke the wood stove and he's trying to gather the eggs and talk to a customer on the phone, instead, he doesn't say anything about that conversation. He just puts it on the agenda for next month's meeting and tells that guy, I'll get back with you in 2 weeks or 3 weeks and we'll have it in our family meeting and we'll make a decision. That suddenly takes the pressure off of, you know how it is, you're mid-stride and suddenly, you know, somebody hits you with this and you're trying to, you know, I'm thinking about things 1, 2, and 3, and suddenly from left field comes this basically a foul ball, you know, and interrupts me, and I've got to make a decision right now. That's not a way to make good decisions. And so the family meeting allows all of us to do things. Now, we also have defined spheres of responsibility for all of us. So we all have job descriptions. And, this came about as Daniel got to be 18 and 19. There he had about a 2 to 3 year resentment period where he began to resent my creativity. So on these tests, these Myers-Briggs, whatever, personality test. Okay, I am way out here on the quadrant of innovation. Okay, he is opposite quadrant, equally far away from the center balance in management. Now, this makes a great combination to have a manager to implement an innovator's ideas. Unless the manager is overwhelmed with too many ideas and starts to resent the cascade of ideas that are coming too fast, all right? And so what we did was we actually created written job descriptions. So we have one for Teresa, one for me, one for Daniel, one for Sherry, so that we would not have redundancy of responsibilities. And that was an incredibly liberating thing, because now we can make 4 simultaneous decisions. This whole thing of every decision's got to be run by the committee and consensus. Man, oh man, you can't run a business. We say you can't farm by committee. You can't run a business by committee. You have to have spheres where people have the freedom and the confidence that they can make a decision about something, and they don't have to run it through the committee. Okay. And so this actually writing down the job descriptions were very freeing. And so as long as it just involves you and your job description, you can make those you can make those things. You can make those judgments. Now, you can you have this ability to come together to talk about things. We routinely do brainstorming, and we routinely do brainstorming exercises. And the key there is no judgment. We say we're going to do a brainstorm right now. Right now, we're trying to create a name for our pig jerky, our pork jerky. We have these pork jerky sticks, and we're working with an outfit in Missouri, and they sell, their brand is Rome Sticks. Well, we've had a couple of neat, collaborative inroads, and it looks like we're going to be able to get on at a very, very incredibly low rate to Amazon Prime nationwide with our pork sticks. They're 1 ounce pork snack sticks. Are you with me? And the Rome Stick folks, who have shepherded this through, their heart's as big as the world. The guy's name, you're gonna love, the guy's name is John Arbuckle. I'd like to be named John Arbuckle. That's Garfield's owner in the comic strip, for those of you. They are not comfortable with us going to a national distribution with their brand name. I get that. So we got to come up with a new one. So we're right now in this brainstorming thing, all right? And the way to make brainstorming flow is everything's okay on the table. No matter how outrageous, no matter how crazy. In the brainstorming time, it's not the time to, so we're doing that right now. So brainstorming is really a powerful way I just can't tell you how many good ideas have come from brainstorming. We do this with the whole staff as well. We come together, we're going to do a brainstorming session. Everybody come together, because sometimes the best idea comes from an intern or apprentice. Why? Because they haven't grown up doing it this way all the time. So they don't have, praise. This is the thing that happens with, the daughter-in-law, Sherry. This is always a problem. They didn't grow up doing it this way. So they throw a monkey wrench into everything, start questioning everything. So that's fun. And then the family meeting has an agenda, okay? So what we have is all four of us at our desks, whether we use Post-it notes or the calendar or, scrap piece of paper or whatever, we keep a tick sheet, agenda items, okay? And then when the family meeting comes up, we put them all together, put them down, and the first item of business is, what's the most important thing to have on the agenda? And we itemize the agenda. We just put them all down, and then we itemize them number 1 through number 10 or whatever, okay? And then we just start tackling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that way you have something that I don't think is important doesn't dominate the day. All right. That's probably enough on family. Let's move to non-family. Okay. I am happy to move to interns and apprentices, but I'm going to do that last. I want to do a generic non-family first. Okay, non-family. All right. So what we're looking for here is shared risk. Think this through with me a minute. Yeah. Anybody that's not related, non-family.
What are you talking about in relation to non-family?
That they're going to come on as part of your team. Labor, this is all about who's going to do the work, who's going to be on this team. All right, who's going to, and see, the thing is, we're all sitting here, and each one of us has a gift and a talent, okay? But we don't have all of them necessary. So, how do we bring on talent? How do we bring on strengths where we're weak? How many of you have grown up, if you're weak in an area, you need to work on your weakness? Well, if you've read any of the business stuff about strength finders, the whole point of Strength Finder is that you're much more efficient finding a partner who's strong with where you're weak and leveraging your strength than trying to overcome your weakness. Look, if you're an introvert and the idea of calling up a chef cold turkey and saying, I got pastured chicken I want you to try, if that makes you break out in a cold sweat, you're never going to enjoy that. And you're not going to be good at it. Okay? So how do you bring, and I'm bringing up marketing because that's such a normal issue. And it's such an easy one to not have an employee on. The problem with employees is, especially hourly, so we don't have anybody who's hourly. Nobody. Okay? The reason is because there's a built-in tension with hourly employees. The employer always thinks the employee is spending too much time yakking at the water cooler, right? And the employee, you get them by themselves, man, I kick tail all day and nobody appreciates me around here, right? This is the tension in the workplace. So how do we solve that tension and turn our farms into this wonderful haven of relational bliss, happiness, okay, where we don't have all these tensions? Because listen, if I send somebody out to, to move the cows, and they neglect to take the service tote with the valves in it and the insulators, they get out there, there's a broken insulator, and they have to spend an hour driving back to the shop to get an insulator to go back out there. Guess how I'm going to feel about watching them take an extra half an hour to come back and get what they were supposed to get based on the SOPs to go back there while they're on the clock? That's a source of tension. Okay? So how do we create a system where we don't have that? And so I want to introduce you to the idea of commissions, including memorandums of understanding. Okay? But let's just do with commissions. And let me tell you a story. So here's a perfect example from us. Okay, so Daniel marries Sherry, 15, 16 years ago. And Sherry comes in, and so she's poking around to find her niche. Okay? I need to find my place here at this trough. Okay? And so we had just started the Metropolitan Buying Clubs at that time. It was like 30 families, and it was very, very small. But we thought there was some real potential there. And the guy who, I was delivering up there. Anyway, she saw that. She saw that. She said, "Man, I think I can make that. I think I can make that go." All right. We didn't know if she could make it go. If we had said, "Okay, we'll hire you at $15 an hour to market to make buying, to make that enterprise go," what if she had totally flopped? Now suddenly you got to fire your daughter-in-law. It gets a little bit dicey. Okay? So how are we going to create an environment where we don't have that kind of tension? So we said, well, let's do commission. You're going to get a commission on every sale. And to her credit, she was very happy with that, even though it wasn't very much money. It was only 30 families. I mean, it was a 1% of our business. Okay, very, very small. No problem. She had enough self-confidence to know that's okay. I'll do that. So that's important. Young people, you millennials, the 3 C's. We care, we want community, and we want convenience. Now, these are all 3. They're good things. I want people that care. I like people that have community. And I like people that are interested in convenience and efficiency and all that. The downside of caring is that lots of times millennials feel entitled because we care. And so I deserve a higher wage. I deserve faster advancement. I deserve whatever, more respect. That's a problem. Community. That's good on one side. But on the other hand, the community is all through Facebook and social media. So it's shallow. And so many of the millennials that come to, if somebody doesn't like them in every 30 minutes, they think the world doesn't like them anymore. Oh, the world's forgotten me. I didn't get a like. And then the third one, convenience. That's great for efficiency. The downside of convenience is impatience. What we're seeing now is typically millennials. We're back. When I was growing up, you usually you went to work for a firm or something. And if you got an advancement in 3 or 4 years, that was pretty good. Now, if you don't get advanced in 6 months, they don't like me around here. It's this impatience thing. So Sherry jumped into this. She said, "Yeah, I'll do this." And so she took it on commission. And over the course of 7 years, she built that into a $1 million enterprise and makes really good money. She makes more money than I do. Okay? But that's okay. As long as we have a margin, who cares? Okay? And it turns out, boy, can she sell. I mean, you know, she sees this whole thing as a big chess game, you know, and can I make this happen? So that's a way to get a partner. If she hadn't been able to sell, we wouldn't have been out anything because she's on performance commission. Are you with me? That takes the pressure off of us having to capitalize front end or be on the hook for an unproven, untried partner. Okay? So we have used this now throughout the farm business. We lease several farms. Well, how do we get them managed? Former apprentices and interns, after they're done, they can take one of these farms as a subcontractor, and we write a memorandum of understanding, which clearly identifies our expectations of them, their expectations of us, compensation package, and a non-litigation clause. And we sign this document, and so we have a stack of these MOUs so that rather than being employees, they're picking. All right, so we pay $35 a day for caretaking a herd of cows. I'll do a herd of cows. Okay, $8 a day per group of pigs. It's 35 to 50 pigs. I'll do 2 groups of pigs. I'll do X number of turkeys, X number of broilers, whatever. And they essentially, from this sheet of choice, they build a compensation package. And if they want to do something that's not on that package, I want to make soap. I want to tap maple trees and make syrup. I want to do garden produce, okay? I want to do shiitake mushrooms, all right? They can then build their whole farming package on what we offer and things that fit that we don't offer, and they can be full-time farming from one day to the next with no debt. Okay? It's a pretty cool deal. I wish I was around when I was that age. Okay? And the beauty of this is there's no risk to us. Let me describe a difference. So let's say that you've got somebody growing 4,000 broilers for you. Okay? Because you can't grow them all yourself. Not enough time in the day. Well, if you go out there and those broilers are yours, you own them, and you see a bunch of and you're buying the feed, and you go out and see a bunch of spilled feed on the ground, that's a source of tension. But if they're their chickens and they're buying the feed, and you're simply buying the chickens from them and marketing through your brand name, suddenly that wasted feed on the ground, that's their profit, not yours. Are you with me? You see how the places of tension, by making a memorandum of understanding on a commission basis or a subcontractor basis, you're not getting into these dishy waters. Eggs. We pay, I think it's $1 a dozen, $1 per saleable dozen of eggs. Now, when we say a saleable dozen, if they're too dirty, they don't sell. If they're cracked, they don't sell. If they're too small, they don't sell. And obviously, if the chicken gets eaten by foxes, there are no eggs to sell. So by having subcontractors who grow eggs for us, even though they're our chickens, our egg mobiles, our farm that we've leased, okay, all that, the point is that by paying simply for saleable dozens of eggs, look at how that incentivizes them. They don't want dirty eggs. That takes too long to clean them to put them away. So now they're incentivized to make the nest boxes clean, keep everything nice and sanitary. They're incentivized to make sure that predators don't come around, because then they'll lose their chickens and then they lose their income. They're incentivized to make sure the eggs don't crack. They're incentivized to find the egg eater and, off her head or whatever. Okay. The point is, there's all these incentives, because if you don't have saleable eggs, you get no paycheck. And this suddenly moves people from dependency and a job into personally owned fiefdoms. Everybody wants a fiefdom. Want a fiefdom? Okay. And the beauty of that is good people with good character, they love a fiefdom. And some of our young people that have done this way overrun. You know, they say, well, I want to make $40,000, and so they create a compensation package and they overrun it. They do a really great job, and at the end of the year they've made 48. That's cool. They overrun it. Others, a little sloppier, want to make 40, and they come up to it and make 35. You know, they had some things get a little bit dicey. Okay, but the point is that now I'm not providing, I don't have the responsibility to employ people. All my responsibility is to create a habitat for germinating partnerships that are their own businesses. You know how liberating that is? Because now I'm not responsible for their income. And now we're shared, we're equals, okay? So when we come together and talk, we're equal partners in this deal, as opposed to boss and employee, okay? And it really changes the work environment, the relationship, and the habitat. So these are really good for production. Now, there are some things that you probably can't get away. I mean, for example, we have a bookkeeper who comes a few hours a week. She charges by the hour. That's the way bookkeepers do, okay? So we haven't been able to figure out how to commission base that, all right? But even our people that are on salary, like Wendy, our PR lady, my personal assistant, and she runs the on-farm store, the cash register, she's on salary. Well, how can we create a bonus ownership for her? So what we've done is, she's real gregarious, outgoing, the kind of person you want to answer the phone because she's always bubbly, right? And so she has really wanted to do some events at the farm. She's real, gregarious and outgoing. And so we've given her a number of events that she can do on a royalty. We take off the expenses, and then we share, I don't know what, 70-30 or something in the what's left over, okay, the profit of it. So she can, in the course of a year, she can create a bonus for herself if she gets some good events and pulls them off. She can do lots of money as a bonus in this cost share thing. We had an apprentice who wanted to stay with us, and so I said, "So Bree, so what do you want to do?" Well, she was an Ed major, loved kids, but she hated the institutional classroom. And so she said, "Well, we're not doing school tours. We need to be doing school tours. We need to get kids out here on the farm and do farm tours and do school tours." By the way, we don't have a petting zoo. I don't believe in petting zoos. I think we've got too many Bambiites and Thumperites in the country already. And we don't need to confuse kids by, this sheep is for petting and this sheep is for eating. Are you with me? Now, you can do your petting zoo if you want to. I'm just telling you why we don't have one, okay? We have just stayed away from that. A lot of people want us to have a petting zoo, but we just don't, because we don't want to send these mixed messages to people and these kids, these impressions, and get them all confused. So Bree said, "I want to do school tours." Okay, so we had a brainstorming session and came up with the name Grass Stains Tours. And so this was Bree's enterprise. She developed what she was going to do. She developed her own, page on the website, her own tab, and she marketed it and, sent emails to teachers and built the business and handled the people coming out. We didn't do anything, and we cost shared 75%, 25%. She gets 75%, we get 25% as a royalty, because if it weren't for us, she wouldn't be able to do it as a royalty. She gets 75%, and she can do as many as she wants. And in no time, she built this up to where now suddenly we have thousands of school kids coming through the farm every year on these school tours. Guess what? They go home with a coupon, stories. Mom and dad come out to the farm. This is part of our outreach. And the kids get to go. I mean, one of the things that she does is really cool. She goes to the supermarket and buys eggs and takes a backpack with her on these tours. And they go to the egg mobile. She lets a volunteer run up inside and get an egg. And then she's got two little paper white saucers with her. And the kids then crack out one of our eggs and one of the supermarket eggs. Now, it's a little unfair because this is a really fresh egg, but that's okay. If you're going to do a comparison test, you want to load it a little bit in your favor, right? I mean, this is just the deal. Anyway, of course, our eggs are really orange and all this stuff, and it just makes this dramatic. These kids are, wow, and suddenly they can talk about nutrition and the color and the carotenoids and all this cool stuff. And the kids are looking at it right there. They've never seen eggs side by side like this. And they will never again believe that an egg is an egg is an egg is an egg. They will know, I went to this farm and I saw this egg and it was different. Okay. And so she developed all that. And after a couple of years, she moved on, did other things. Another guy came on and did that, and then now we have Heather doing that. She's taken it now to another, she's gone way up to another level where she's actually marketed it for anniversaries and birthdays and, corporate enviro retreats and all sorts of cool stuff. She's built it out. I think she did almost 80 of these tours this year. But we get all these benefits, all these synergistic benefits from it. All I know is when I see a bus down at the end of the lane and a bunch of kids pour off of it, oh, I guess Heather has a tour. That's all I know about it. She does it all. She's completely empowered and incentivized to do it all. So these are the kinds of collaborative things that you can develop. I mean, I know a family, for example, in North Carolina, they do on-farm dinners. For me, that would be intimidating. But these guys, work with a local chef, and they sell these on-farm dinners, 50 plates for $100 a plate, once a month. So they do 9 of them through the season. That's $5,000. The ingredients and the labor run about $1,500. That's $3,500 of clear profit from the event. And all those people came out to the farm, and enjoyed the ambiance and the loyalty and all the stuff that comes from a farm. And 3,500 times 9 events, we're talking about basically a salary with 9 events a year. And they don't do anything except park cars when the folks come in, and somebody else does all the meal and the coordination and gets they enjoy it and get paid for it and get publicity for their restaurant in town. Okay, hey, come and see us. So there's all these synergistic things. So I hope that this helps you to appreciate the number of synergistic, collaborative things that can be done. But you don't have to do it all. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to liberate you. I'm trying to liberate me from feeling like, all this list of things we could do. Oh, it makes me tired looking at the list. Well, don't be tired, be energized simply by being creative enough to bring on partners, friends, acquaintances with gifts, and let it be their little enterprise. A lot of people would love to spend a couple of days a year and earn another couple, $3,000, just, kind of on the side, okay? So tap into that. Even our main delivery driver employee, Richard, he's on salary. Okay, so he does get a base salary, not by the hour, but a salary. But then what we have there is a benchmark that if in a year he goes over this certain pounds of stuff delivered, all of our delivery is broken out separately, so we know how many pounds were delivered, and so we have a rate on that. if he goes over a certain number of pounds, every pound over that, we profit share, I think it's 60-40. He gets 60, we get 40, every pound over that. That incentivizes him to look for new customers, to make sure he's real friendly to all of our customers, to say, driving down, hey, I see a new restaurant going in down there, I think it might be a good one. And then he passes that on to Sherry or Hannah, who they can then make the call. And so every single person has this autonomous spot that they can go. Now, there's a real downside to this. Ready for the downside? The downside is, what if you have 3 or 4 of these nice synergistic collaborative enterprises going on, and somebody leaves? Oh no! Dan, our shiitake mushroom grower, he got married and had a couple of kids, and they decided, we're going back to Wisconsin, where all of our, my wife and I's families are. You can't, these are all young people. You can't put a chain on them, right? They got treasures to go find in the world, right? And so he took off right when chefs and this shiitake mushroom, and he was doing these wine cap stropharia mushrooms under the orchard trees. And these are $20 mushrooms. They're this big old wine cap strophariums. And anyway, what did we do? Nothing. So we don't do shiitake mushrooms anymore. Now we go up when the logs blossom. They're still up there, and when they blossom, we pick them and we eat them. All right. But there's nobody caretaking. There's nobody, doing that business. So the downside is, you have to be willing to let it go and not, oh no, what are we going to do? When that person who owned that business or enterprise, if they want to make a change. Okay? And that takes a little bit of, it takes a little bit of faith, all right? It's going to be okay. And so people come and go. It's all right. Somebody comes in, they want to pick all the elderberries and make elderberry. It's a big juice now. A really hilly quality of elderberries. Fine. Well, if they leave or go to upper happier hunting grounds and nobody's there to pick the elderberries don't get picked. All the birds eat them this year. And so the beauty, the downside of this, you have to be willing to let stuff go and just appreciate that now our business is not just my vision, my brainchild, my little thing. It's actually this expression of the gifts, talents, and passions of the people we have partnering with us right now. And when those partnerships change, that enterprise mix is going to fluctuate too, if nobody steps up to the plate. I'm really happy that since Bree left, so far we have had somebody step up to the grass stains tours every year since she left. Okay, I'm really glad. I would have really been bummed if we had to give up that. But if nobody stepped up, we'd give it up too. We'd give that up too. And then you gain something else. So you give one up and you gain something, and you give one up and you gain something. Questions? Let's deal with that. And then if we still have time, we're going to dive into the entrepreneurship a little bit. Yes?
How do you go about deciding what portion of the expenses for setting up these separate brainchilds?
Yeah.
And what portion of the income you would get?
Okay. The question is, how do you determine the percentages that the two parties get on a collaborative enterprise? That's the question? Okay. Well, okay. All right. There are different kinds of there are different levels of ownership. All right. So let's just take marketing, for example. Marketing, we have a straight 5% marketing commission. All right? So a person who sells $1 million worth of product can earn $50,000 a year. All right, just so we're clear. All right, that's just straight across the board. And all of our people that do marketing get that same rate. Okay? Now, let's take a different one. Let's take broilers. That's a nice, because it's a fast turnaround. You know, it's 8 weeks. All right, start to finish. All right, broilers. Okay, so we have young people that come and they have a nest egg, and they say, we want to own the chickens. We want to own the chickens, own the feed, do everything, and we're going to bring you, and we're going to process it and bring a saleable chicken in a bag with a label on it. Okay? So for those folks, we're paying a certain amount per pound for the chicken. So they weigh, 2,000 pounds. And so all of these kinds of enterprises, they bill us monthly, just like a professional, Green Farm XY, LLC, and they give us an invoice monthly and we pay that invoice. All right.
They're using your equipment.
Okay. Yeah. So it all depends on what they use like that. All right. So the broiler shelters, they rent for a nominal amount, $5 a year. All right. Just to recognize it's ours. Okay. Now we have other young people that come without a penny to their name and they want to start. Well, they can't capitalize a batch of 1,000 broilers. Even though they're going to get their money back in 8 weeks, they can't do it. So they want to work, so they don't want to own the birds. They want to get paid by the piece. So we pay them $1.50 per saleable chicken. And we make parameters. It can't be smaller than this. So if it's a little, so one of these little throwback genetic pygmies, that's we call them road runners, that's like a pound. They just go to compost, okay? And they don't get paid for that, all right? And obviously they don't get paid for the chicken that the fox ate or whatever, all right? So they're getting paid $1.50 a bird. How do we arrive at $1.50 a bird? Okay? So what we do, and if you come to the Stockman Grass Farmer Business School, we'll go through this. But this is where we come with time and motion studies, all right? So we actually wear a watch, a stopwatch. And we know that our benchmark for moving the chicken shelters is 60 seconds. Now, I can do it in 40 seconds, but I don't expect everybody to be able to do it as fast as I've been doing it for 1,000,000 years, okay? So our benchmark is 60 seconds per shelter, all right? There's 75 chickens in a shelter. So that's 1.2 seconds per chicken per day, times 35 days, and you come out to whatever the number is, 70 seconds per chicken, all right, on the production end. So then you say, well, what's a benchmark of pay? What in our area, what is a respectful amount of pay? Not minimum wage, but a respectable amount of pay. So for us in our area, and we're not California, okay? So our cost of living is much less than here, but we established $20 an hour as our benchmark for labor pay. Okay, so everything that we do is based on $20 an hour. All right, so we take our 70 seconds per chick and we divide that into the $20 an hour, and what you do is you come up with a labor cost in production. Okay, now if that's all they want to do, when we process those birds, we count them, and if there's 1,432, we multiply that by $1.50, and they give us an invoice, right? And we're going to pay them whatever it is, $2,000, okay, for a bunch of chickens. Maybe they say, well, I not only want to produce them, I want to process them too, and become more of that middleman, right? Well, so we have a separate amount for the processing that we've done by doing time and motion studies. This is important, folks. Time and motion. I had a most interesting conversation one day. I got a call from the Washington attorney on retainer to McDonald's to come down and visit. This is going back, oh goodness, 10 years probably. Michael Pollan had just written his New York Times thing, The Power Steer, and there was this big hoopla about grass-finished beef. And so McDonald's was actually looking at a grass-finished beef burger. And because of some of the things I've said about McDonald's, the executives did not want to come. They were afraid I'd bite their heads off. So they called up their guy in DC and said, would you go down, meet with this guy and see if, kind of feel him out and see if we could meet with him. So he came down and we spent the morning together. And he told me a lot of interesting things. And here's one of the most interesting ones. He said, we have an experimental kitchen, a logistics kitchen. And every single item of furniture, that's what they call all the equipment in a restaurant, if you can call McDonald's a restaurant. All of the furniture is on wheels. And this staff comes in, all they do, they are engineer, type. And every day they come in and they reconfigure. They might move the French fryer 1 inch. They might move something. They might go from a circle to a straight line, from a straight line to a 90 degree. Okay, we're talking about flow here. All right, but here's what I want you to remember. He said, if we can figure out how to shave 1 second off of a routine process, that's worth $10 million a year to us. Now, folks, I would love to think that our ministry of land healing and good food is so compelling that the world throws $20 bills at our feet. If you build it, they will come. I got news for you. If you build it, you have to sell it. That's the truth. Because they will not come just because you build it. All right, we're to Zig Ziglar, right? Nothing happens until you sell something. Okay? Until then, it's all pie sky, fantasy, and altruism. And altruism doesn't take the wife to dinner or buy shoes. Okay? So, this is the reality of our situation. This is what we're up against. We've got to be serious about this. As much as we view what we want to do as noble and sacred and good and altruistic and all this, McDonald's is trying to shave a second off of a procedure to save $10 million a year. That's how we've got to think. Because if we're not that serious about our time and motion, we're going to get left in the dust. So, are you running a stopwatch? So we have benchmarks for everything. One person should be able to put away and wash 30 dozen eggs, that's a case of eggs, in 20 minutes. That's our benchmark. Are you watching your watch? And we ride our interns and apprentices. Where's your watch? Okay? Are you making this benchmark? Do you care? All right? You say you care. Well, let's care about making the benchmark. Okay? Here's the point. All of this time and motion study then creates the basis on which we can tease out value of all these different procedures. Okay? So we can create a spreadsheet. I'm saying I should not say spreadsheet. I should say a list because I'm a Luddite. But we can create essentially a cornucopia of opportunity. I'll take 2 groups of pigs. I'll do 4,000 broilers. I'll do 1 pair of egg mobiles at 600 layers, okay? And that way they can build their compensation package. Now, that said, the more ownership they take, we prejudice the compensation to reward ownership. Okay? So the more you own, the more of the retail dollar you get to capture because you're taking more and more risk. The more you own, the more risk you take. If you're not owning the chicken or buying the feed, we could do this with produce. Okay, if you're not buying the seed and owning the plant, then you're not taking very much risk. If I'm going to do all that and put on the compost and prepare the garden and blah blah blah, and all you're going to do is plant, you don't take very much risk. Are you with me? And so we load this over to reward the risk. The person, as you move toward the risk, that's where you've got to move the compensation. This really became apparent. I'll give you an example because there's an emotional side of this too. So we had two subcontractors growing broilers. One had a nest egg, owned the chickens. The other one didn't have a nest egg, didn't own the chickens. We had a 100-degree day. Daniel calls both of them proactively and says, all right, remember, it's going to be 100 degrees tomorrow. So make sure you go out at 2 o'clock, spray some water on the birds. I mean, we're pastured, but 100 degrees is still 100 degrees on big birds. Little birds, they don't care. They can take whatever. Big birds, right before slaughter, they're big, okay? And so spray some water down and, take care of them. Neither one did it. And they're both very conscientious. You'd love both of them, all right? But one of them was in town, didn't get back in time. One of them was doing something else and didn't get out to the field. Both of them. They both lost 100 birds, okay? And it's really a bummer when you lose 100 5-pound birds, okay? The one, we didn't like that either one of them lost any of them. It was uncalled for. But the one was dicier because we owned the birds. The one who owned the birds, we didn't like the loss of the birds, but it wasn't a big financial loss to us because he owned those birds. Okay? That's why you load these things over to who's going to take the risk. All right? Answer the question? Good. All right. Another question. I understand that this concept of not hourly is foreign in America. I understand that. But I hope you're appreciating how this can change your shared responsibility and the empowerment of your partners to be able to have their spheres of autonomy. I can't tell you how empowering this is for both parties and freeing from the natural tensions that come in. Yes.
How did you set the lease cost for the people who leased the farm with all your tractors and equipment?
Okay, great question. All right, so the farms that we lease, that's our deal. So these subcontractors don't have anything to do with the lease. That's our deal. Now, it's interesting. What's interesting is you get some of these landlords who have leased to people forever, and just run cows, continuous grazing. We come over there, moving 500 head on 2 acres every day and do this mob stocking, herbivorous, solar conversion, lignified carbon sequestration, fertilization. They're used to looking out their back door and seeing this herd of 50 cows and their calves spread out over this 100-acre field, and we roll in there with 400 head, for 2 months in these little, right? And their wheels start going. That's a lot of cows. That's a lot of cows. And then they start seeing, eggmobiles go behind. And they start seeing broilers. And they see 400 turkeys out there. And their, ears are, and they start thinking, well, they're generating a lot of income off this place. Because we generally generate 5 to 10 times per acre what anybody else does because of this stacking of the synergistic enterprises on the same land base. So we've actually had landlords come to us and use the term, you're going to love this, I'm the Lord of the Manor. And they want us to pay extra on the lease because of all this hundreds of thousands of dollars that's coming off of this land. So my answer on all these things, it can get a little bit interesting, but my answer is, so is there anything out there that you see of these other enterprises? Is there anything out there that you've contributed to? Nothing. Every single additional dollar that we get beyond the conventional guys that are just continuous grazing, we did it, not the landlord. And boy, that's one that we don't back up on even a second. Because if you back up on that, that's a nose under the tent. And the next thing you know, you're going to be paying a nickel a dozen eggs. You're going to be paying a royalty of $1 a turkey. And it's just going to get a mess. So the point is, we're making the place look beautiful. And of course, they have to be able to withstand their other neighbors who think they're nuts. And we always pay more than the going lease rate. If the going lease rate is $45 an acre, we pay 50 or 55. Okay, if it's 30, we pay 35 or 40. So we always pay a premium because we know we're gonna, Now there's one guy that we leased a 20-acre field from for pigs, for a pig pasture. This was a field that was small grain and soybeans and wheat in the 1950s. And the dad died and the son took over, and it's an unhandy field. It's not, it's out of sight of the house. It's through the woods, over a hill and all that. And so this son that's now running the farm basically abandoned this 20-acre field. Well, it adjoins a farm that we already rent. And we're watching this field convert into brambles and brush and honeysuckle, and I mean, it's, Brer Rabbit's dream, right? And so I finally went to the, and scrubbed, young walnuts and, crab apples and stuff, okay? So I go to the guy and I said, hey, you're not doing anything with that field. Would you mind us running pigs over there? And the going rate for a field like that in our area would be $25 an acre. Just kind of scrub, poor, junky. And I said, we'll be glad to pay you $100 an acre, which is way more than even cropland in our area goes for. We thought he died and gone to heaven. He thought he died and won the lottery. I mean, on that 20-acre field now, he's making more than enough to pay the taxes on the entire farm. I said, yeah. But the reason I offered him 100 was because I knew we were going to make it look different. And I'll tell you what, landlords, even if different is better, they're a little squeamish about different. And what he didn't know, and I would never tell him, is that we run on those 20 acres, we can finish 4 batches times 200. We can finish 300 hogs a year on that 20 acres. We're moving them every couple of days. So we took the 20 acres and divided into 40 half-acre paddocks with a central alley, and we can run 4 simultaneous groups of pigs down 4 10-paddock half-acre. Are you with me? Rotations. All right, simultaneous. And we're generating $300,000 a year off of that 20 acres. Yeah, for $2,000, we could pay him $200 an acre. All right, without even breathing. And so, but there's no use to telling him what we do because he wouldn't believe it if I told him. So, there's no sense in casting your pearls before swine. So there you go. Okay, did I answer the question? Are we good? Question up here, yes. Great question. So how do you protect your brand? You're diversifying, you got more people involved. Okay, so number one is nobody can join us as a partner until they've been through our intern apprenticeship program. So if we don't love you, we're not going to marry. Okay? So that's the number one way. Okay? Now, the collaborations like with the organic apple orchard and the kombucha people and the grass-based dairy and all that, those are not things that we produce. So we're simply looking for somebody with compatible values, you know, GMO-free stock going into the ferments or the kombucha, okay? We're looking for, you know, unsprayed apples, okay? So we're looking for a compatibility, all right? Like right now, we've just been contacted by an outfit in the area that's, what's the name of their business? It's it's like hunter-gatherer or something like that. And what they've done is they've put together meal packages of everything but the meat. So you buy a chicken and rice dinner. The package, the little baggie that's shipped to you, has everything but the chicken. And then you put your chicken with it. All right. So it's all the grains or the beans or the, you know, stuff, dehydrated, and they've asked to coordinate. So we're in the vetting stage with them of what they're sourcing to find out, is this a compatible produce, beans, you know, is this a compatible sourcing for what we do on the animal side? And if we can suss that out, we very possibly will go in with them so that our customers, so that they can jump into our market and our folks can enjoy that. And of course, they will buy our beef, pork, or chicken to go with that hunter-gatherer meal. It's like one step on beyond paleo, you know, it's that kind of thing. So, you know, we'll see. But that, you do everything to protect your brand, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for, did I answer the question? Yeah, thank you. Question? Sure. The question is, what are the tax things with these folks? All right. So, first of all, every one of them has to have an LLC or a DBA, doing business as. All right. Because the red flag to the IRS is a check to a person. You write a check to a person, that's going to be they're going to kick that out of subcontractor every day. Okay. So they have to create an entity that is not personal. Okay. So that keeps the red flags down. And then for the services, obviously we don't have to do a 1099 on goods like chicken, but if it's a service like $1.50 a chicken or $35 per herd of cows, you know, per day, any of the service, yes, they do get a 1099, just like any other subcontractor of a service provider subcontractor would get a 1099. But they're not in workman's comp. Okay, and certainly we don't withhold on them. So they file themselves and go through all that. Yeah, good question, yes.
Something similar to that. I know that companies like Tyson have a certain kind of system like that. How is what we're doing different?
How what we're doing is different is because our guys can make $30 an hour. What Tyson's doing is most of those guys, even with a $2 million investment, still have to work in town to make ends meet, even though they've got 4 Tyson chicken houses. So the difference is that we're a benevolent partner that respects them, and they're actually earning a nice white-collar salary as a farmer. That's the difference. So, well, I mean, there are more differences as well. I mean, they do a contract and pit their growers against each other. So a lot of people don't realize that. So what Tyson does is they have all these contract growers, right? And when they come and pick up my chickens, okay, those chickens go into the pool of the week with everybody else who brought chickens in that week. And the guy with the highest feed conversion gets a little bonus on his check. So all the people in the pool are constantly competing for that weekly bonus check on efficiency. It's a pretty, it's a dog eat dog or chicken eat chicken or whatever, but it's a pretty rough thing. And interestingly, in our area, because of that, you'll love this. I got to tell you this since it came up. A guy in our area that's one of these contract growers, he got to thinking, he said, I can beat this. So he goes down to the local co-op feed store on his own and buys 1 ton of feed, dumps it in the hopper, and suddenly he beats the efficiency. The ton, do you follow that? Because the Tysons, the company, they are weighing every batch of feed that's going out, and they weigh the batch of chickens. The tractor trailer goes across the scales when they come to the slaughter. And so they have a weight of the chicken, and they have a weight of the feed that went into the chicken. So this guy spent $300 buying a ton of feed on his own, out of his own pocket, dumped that in the feeder, and that was just enough edge to get that extra $2,000 bonus check for being the most efficient conversion guy of the week. They weren't happy when they found out what he was doing, but I always thought, man, now that's a clever guy. He was clever and tried to beat the system. Great. So we're very, very different. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of autonomy there, and we provide the infrastructure. These other Tyson growers, they personally have to buy the $500,000 house, equip it, and all this. Our guys, we provide the infrastructure. Okay? Good question. Question up there, yes. Yeah, the question is death loss in cattle with the subcontractors. Yeah. Again, remember, all these have gone through our program. If we didn't trust them or love them, we wouldn't have them. So there's this really extensive multi-month, even multi-year vetting process. That's important to understand. You can learn a lot about a person if you work side by side with them for a year. You can learn a lot about a person if you work side by side with them for a day. Okay? But a year, bad days, good days, stressful days, easy days, you're going to learn a lot about a person. So far, we've been doing this for 20 years, and that has never been an issue, believe it or not. Because if we didn't trust them with the herd, we wouldn't give it to them. So, and remember, these herds, we've got 1,000 head of cattle, and so we might have 4 herds at any one time, on different farms, different people, and we're moving those around. So we're putting eyes on them. We're getting them in a corral. We're sorting through. We're moving them to different farms. And so, Papa John had them for 60 days. Now Dakota's going to have them for 60 days. And then Shane's going to have them for 60 days. Then they're going to go back to Papa John. Okay? And so we're seeing this in the handling, the hauling, the corral. There's we have a lot of eyes on them. And they're going to different people so that other people are seeing them as well. Great question. Another question. Yes?
Do you put a cap on the number of enterprises that you're willing to get into, or do you find that the more enterprises, the more of these functional, synergistic enterprises you get into, the more productive everybody else is?
The question is there a cap on these enterprises? There is no cap. I'd like it to go to 1,000. One of the most, memorable papers I still have is one that Dad and I did before he died. This was like 1980, he died in 88. I'm going to say 86 maybe, Teresa and I came back to the farm full-time September 24, 1982. And it took us about 3 years to actually realize we're going to make it. I don't have to go back to town. We're going to make it, okay? And so like the next year, on January 1st one year, Dad and I sat down and we brainstormed how many salaries could this little farm produce. This was before we were leasing any, renting anything or any of that kind of thing. And so I remember very well, I've still got the little paper, it's getting yellow now, but we wrote down, I think it was 22 salaries. And we had, an apple orchard, blackberries, goodness, I don't know, cut flowers, all right. Now that list would be triple because we know so much more. We're doing things now that we would have never envisioned back then. And so now, and the thing is, when you get up into that number, 30, 40 people, suddenly now you can have, for example, a full-time daycare person, a full-time mechanic. So one of the things that we have this year coming on is we have a maintenance tech coming on, and man, I'm excited about that. But it's because all these different farms now, we don't need more tractors. We don't need another post pounder. We don't need another hay baler. We don't, all this infrastructure now gets economies of scale spread over a lot of things. But it's instead of being a top-down centralized expansion of a single entity, it's actually a decentralized duplication with spread over infrastructure that's communal. So it's a more communal rather than a straight line linear expansion of a single, we've got one Tyson chicken house, let's build 2 more. Instead of that, we've got one Tyson chicken house, let's raise some pigs and have a dairy and make cheese and do bramble fruits and farm tours. And are you with me? And so what you're doing is you're stacking all these enterprises on that land base. And I don't think we've scratched the surface. I mean, I think it's literally limitless. And so when I do my, farm business talks around, I always tell farmers there's not a farm on the planet that is fully leveraged to the abundance that it wants to produce. Most farmers are sitting around here, I'm working an 80-hour week, the land's getting worse, we got erosion, I can't keep up with the crops are going down, we got diseases, I'm getting older, and everything is based on it's getting worse, it's getting more scarce, it's getting harder, it's getting, right? And what I'm trying to present is, there's not any farm in the world that is fully leveraging the abundance that our ecological womb wants to give us. This is not a reluctant partner that we have to get in a half Nelson and I'm going to wrestle out of you this crop of wheat, It's actually a lover, a benevolent lover that simply wants to be caressed and massaged into more abundance. That's looking at it from abundance as opposed to scarcity. And the hurdle for that, though, the hurdle to do that is more people on your farm. And most hermit curmudgeon farmers don't want another person on their farm. And I always tell them, I say, okay, I get that you're 50 and you don't want a 20-year-old tag along around behind you. Here's what I suggest you do. Go to the bathroom, look in your bathroom mirror. Everybody's got a mirror over their sink, right? Look deep into your eyes and tell yourself, I really want to grow old alone. And if you can do that, have at it, more power to you. But if you start to, I'm not sure about this, then open your heart to a young person. Open your heart to a young person. When Teresa and I got married, kids came pretty fast, and we're talking about, what's your vision? And Stephen, another one of his 7 habits is start with the end in view. And Teresa asked me one day, she says, what do you want? I said, what I want is I want to become a grandpa, and the only arguments on the farm are the grandkids arguing over who gets to spend the day with grandpa.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I am.
Yeah, you're lucky, man.
But you have to articulate it. You have to say it, and you have to have a vision for it. Thank you so much for letting me. You guys have just been wonderful. Okay.
Well, that was great. I mean, it wasn't what you taught us last time.
No.
But you met our needs. And I want to thank you for being honest. I could see you telling the truth about what it's about. And I don't know about you guys, but that's a lot of really good information on how to succeed.
Good.
Thank you.
Great.
That's what I asked you to do, and you did it in spades. Thank you for coming again.
Thank you.
All right, as we end today, I just want to mention that we did the drawing. And so if you're not coming tomorrow and you won, you might as well find out now. So if I say your name, make a little squeal so I know you're here. Carolyn Batone, Julia Lorenzo, Nancy Nabriga, Doris Jones, Jonathan Higolita, Bob Becker, Darla Lackey, Jane Harris, Roger Strong, Betty Kruger, Paige Chastain, Jeanette Lopez, Nancy Davis, and Alana Lucia. So if you're coming tomorrow, hang on to your program. If you're not, you could drop them off as you go through the main hall. We've got a box for them. What's happening now is heading over to the Old Republic and having a couple, well, they're not really home brews, artisan brews. I think you'll like them. Thanks for coming today.